سلام بچه، خوش آمدید در چینل حسین 5000. امیدوارم که جور و صحتمند باشین و امروز هم ما سعی میکنیم که چند تا کلمات جدید رو با گوش دادن با اخبار با هم یاد بگیریم و سعی کنید که چینل ما را سابسکرایب کنید تا ویدیوهای بعدی ما را از دست ندهین. advantage advantage appreciate appreciate cheap cheap momentum momentum rookie rookie standpoint standpoint appropriate appropriate prudent prudent occasionally occasionally isolated isolated flashed out flashed out
There are ways to trade around certain things, as our next guest is doing. One of our own, Steve Weiss, joins us on the phone because he has put on some short-term trades right around earnings that we thought were pretty interesting and that all of you would want to know about. Weiss, thanks for calling in. You bought puts on Apple and Microsoft expiring by the end of the week. Why'd you do it? You're expecting some downside off the numbers?
You know, I basically have no expectations, nor do I care about what any particular quarter does, but when there's an opportunity to either protect your capital or generate some return, and it can both be the same thing, I think you have to take advantage of it. So I was pricing out the puts, and John will appreciate this. I didn't want to sell calls in case they did go to the upside, because all have strong fundamentals. But I looked at puts on actually all the FAANG stocks, including Amazon, including Facebook, and they were just too expensive. I found some cheap puts that are not that far out of the money on Apple and Microsoft, so I bought them. So if I'm wrong, stock moves up, great, I lose some of my upside, but if the stock gets a big hit, and we see that's possible with what happened with UPS today and other stocks, the market's just very unforgiving because momentum players get in, as you pointed out, Scott, with Apple, in expectation of a great quarter, and if it doesn't materialize, they just hit the exit door really, really quickly. So I thought the risk-reward and the appropriate thing to do from risk-benefit standpoint is take out some protection, which is why, as I mentioned last week, I had short the SMH.
Right.
And so that's giving me some hedging on my semis as well. And it's just that kind of market with all-time highs, with momentum in there, that you've got to take protection when it's appropriately priced.
Stay with me, Weiss. Doc, you want to grade the trade?
Yeah, well, you know, Steve is a smart investor, and I say that, Scott, because he's already identified one of the rookie mistakes that people make if they say that they want to perhaps put on a position that makes money on the downside. Some people will sell an upside call and say, oh, I get to keep the premium, which they do if the stock goes down. But on the contra to that, if it goes up, you lose multiples of what you stood to make because there is unlimited, nearly upside risk in that trade. That's not what Steve's doing. He is buying a put option that he thinks is cheap, and I agree with him, relatively cheap. Calls are trading about 2 to 1 versus puts, so the overall street says that it'll be good, but buying a cheap put means he can only lose what he paid for the put, and unless he holds it all the way to Friday, which I don't think he's going to, whether it works or not, I think he'll trade out of it pretty quick. And I think that's the way a prudent investor should trade the market. Buy something when it's cheap, and don't put yourself in a position to get flushed out if the leverage is against you.
Quick last word to you, Weiss, and I got to bounce.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I did. I do occasionally sell calls, but not against the best. If they just run way too much, isolated instances. So, thanks, John. Thanks for the...